Joining us on the program today, the host of the Duke CT Lounge, Charles Thomas.
Hey everyone.
There we go. Had the volume turned down. And hopefully there's no echoing going on here. Because, like, just me, I am so, afraid of Murphy's Law on all these streams, especially when I go to someone live talking on here. But hopefully we're gonna keep, I think we got at least we got two more people in the chat that can hopefully keep us, informed on whether or not we've got some echoing or any other problems here. Hopefully things will go smoothly on this. But, again, welcome again. It's time once again for Ugly American Sports. Duke CT host Charles Thomas is with us, and there's a very specific reason why I wanted Duke on this issue, because, of course, this past week, about Monday and Tuesday, was the passing of baseball's trade deadline, and of course, the big subject of this year's Total trade line was Juan Soto. So definitely want to be able to get a DC native in the Duke right here. Let me see if we bring up exactly how the trade went down here. I've got this on ESPN that the Washington Nationals essentially send Juan Soto and Josh Bell to the San Diego Padres for veteran first baseman Luke Voigt, along with prospects Mackenzie Gore, Robert Hassel III, C.J. Abrams, James Wood, and Jarlin Susana. That's about one of the biggest packages I've seen. Now, for what's seen, ever since the Texas Rangers sent a guy named Mark Teixeira to Atlanta back in 2007, which that, of course, became one of the more famous trades in baseball history. But obviously, it's only a wait and see as to whether or not any of those guys will pan out for the Nationals. But from a current perspective, I'm guessing it's definitely going to be frustrating for everyone there in the D.C. area that 3 years removed from being World Series champions, they've essentially completely dismantled that entire club. I think, is Steven Strasburg the only guy left from there?
At that point, yes. It reminds me, if you want to go back in history, how the Marlins, when they won their World Series, and they were dismantled their teams as well, if you want to go back to it. But I think the reason why there's so much of dismantlement, one, injuries that, Strasburg and, Scherzer and all those players just didn't get right in the 2020 season. A lot of other issues happened in the 2020 season. Everything that happened in 2021, and I think the reason why we looked at it, the writing was on the wall. I think Soto wanted to stay here, but he wanted a true max deal. That was the main thing in the deal. People said we're going to get it done. Then it was leaked that he didn't want to.
That's the interesting thing. Yeah, that's the interesting thing that I keep coming back to is the fact that. That's the first time I ever heard supposedly that Soto wanted to stay here, and yet, like I said, probably the main driving force between, it seems like, the Washington just giving up and deciding to ship him was the fact that he turned down what was going to be, a 15-year deal in the range of $440 million. And that was, the fact that they were willing, even after everyone that they shipped off the last few years, guys like Max Scherzer and everyone like that, it seemed like they were offering the chance to tell Soto, look, we may be starting over, but we plan on you being
the main guy,
the center of this entire package, and we're going to restructure the team. Either one, he didn't want to be in a rebuild, or two, he thinks he can actually get more than $440 million on the open market, which, by the way, keep in mind, he's still not due to be a free agent until 2020, after the 2024 season, I believe. Correct. Remember, this is a guy that's only 24 years old already. And
yeah, he's betting on himself, and it could work. I mean,
maybe.
We've seen this stuff, but then again, right now, when you look at, say, for example, the Padres, who are all that whole trade was getting to beat LA.
And that's the big thing.
The whole thing. If they don't, and they have Soto for 2 years, and they have the whole thing for 2 years, and they got rid of all their prospects for it. This is their World Series push. And if they don't win it this year.
And
they're on a losing streak right now, by the way.
Yeah, and that's the main thing. Like I said, I checked, and last I checked, the Padres still are already about 12 and a half games back of the Dodgers in the National League West. I was just looking some stuff up here. It's like, was it really good to? And this is, like I said, this is the main reason why I was actually really glad that the Rangers didn't go after this guy. There was some talk, and this is how crazy the situation was here in Texas. Like, people wonder, like, what the Rangers were going to do at the trade deadlines. There was talk, like, one, were they going to be sellers and deal off Martin Perez at the deadline, or were they going to actually be buyers and try to get in on Juan Soto, which would have probably at least involved dealing the guy they just drafted last year and supposedly were building this whole team around in Jack Leiter, who is now currently in Double-A Frisco right now. And that was just meanwhile I said, I looked at Soto, at least from my perspective, is with the Rangers, you already invested nearly $500 million in two hitters, in Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. And now you're going to basically flush away the farm system on a guy that he's going to take that much money alone to just tie him up. And especially if you're going to deal your best pitching prospects. I mean, this would have been 2001 cranked up to 9,000. Now, I did check like this. The Padres, as far as pitching goes, they haven't been that bad. I think their team ERA is 5th best in the National League. So they're not starving for pitching. So maybe going all in on a superstar hitter like Soto, they might be in the position to be able to do that. The only thing that concerns me is this. You mentioned 2020, and that apparently was actually Soto's best season to date, which he led the National League with batting .351 and all those other percentage categories like on-base average and slugging and whatnot. He led the National League in all of them. At the moment, though, 2 years later, his current batting average is 100 points lower than that.
Ooh,
now,
yeah, but it's like, hey, you know what? You know, it's still high.
I'll grant you this. He's still, if there's anything, he's still drawing walks because according to this numbers, already this season, he's already equaled the most number of bases on balls he had last season, which led the National League as well. He's led the National League in walks for the past 2 seasons. And
the guy knows how to knows what pitches to hit and what not to hit. That is one of his main. He knows how to get on base.
But that goes into the one concern I have with Juan Soto, and it's something I have with a lot of players, that here's a guy who's already at the age of 24. He's already got a ring. He's already got a World Series ring at this point. And you just have to wonder if this is going to be one of those guys that, especially when the time comes, that he gets that ginormous contract. And he's going to get that huge deal. That is absolutely certain. But this, to me, I can't help but wondering if this is going to be one of those guys that might start mailing it in once you get that huge deal.
I don't think so. I think he probably will be more motivated. I mean, people said the same thing, like, when Ovechkin got that huge hockey deal, like, oh, well, he's not, no, he continued to perform, and not only but exceeded expectations. I think that will be for him, and I don't know if it doesn't work in San Diego, which at this point you never know. But if they don't win it this year or next year, at this point I think he might stay there, or he might, crazy things to happen. He might come back to DC, and just like DC would be a lot higher in the division and such. And then hey, you know what? The new ownership comes in, and that will be the like, oh my gosh, all's forgiven or whatever. My one thing though about this is, like, again, the ownership issue about the Learners trying to sell and such. You look what's going on in Baltimore right now. They're like 2 games away from a wild card spot, and some say, oh, they're gonna go buying. They didn't. They sat back, and honestly, I think that was probably for the best because they've been to that position before. I mean, the reason why they were in that terrible position for a long time is that they kept buying at the deadline when they didn't need to buy at the deadline. they should, and I think this patience stuff is going. Most people around, if you talk to some Baltimore fans, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're 2 games behind. Why didn't you just go and keep going?" I'm like, "You're like, no, yo." I'm like, "Hey, patience, man. That's what you have to do." And they can still win, but I don't think they're ready for it yet.
And I've
And
got
then again, the ownership issue again, where the ownership with Baltimore is so bad, they might actually move the dang team in some cases and such, which I think is insane because the way Maryland fought to keep the Orioles here, they're not letting that the Orioles leave
I
without a
will say,
fight.
yeah. I don't know if, like, I admit I don't know the situation there being up in that area. I actually got to see a game in Baltimore earlier this year on the 4th of July, just to know how much that team has invested in Oriole Park and Camden Yards. I just don't see the possibility that they might be, that the Orioles specifically might be looking to relocate, because I think that situation seems to be set in place. They see, if nothing else, I think it looks like ownership is comfortable with their stadium situation, which, let's face it, that's the driving force between any relocation plans in this day and age. That's what's put the Oakland A's up in limbo for the past few years, and especially now more than ever. So I'm not sure about whether or not Baltimore is going to be in danger of relocating anytime soon. But as far as Baltimore, you preach the patience thing. It's basically the same thing here in Texas right now, I would say. That just giving away all those prospects for one guy. Look, I've just said this, and I've said this tentatively, more or less. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for. The only way that the Rangers can ever hope to get back to World Series contention is they have to rely on developing their own from within. And the only question I've had is the current management system have the capability of doing that? And to me, it all comes down to whether or not John Daniels is just going to sit back, keep his mouth shut, keep out of the way of meddling, and let guys like Chris Young fix the situation. That Daniels, more or less, however many people in Texas you want to deny this, basically disassembled everything, because there was the same situation back around 2014 to 16. He takes on huge contracts of guys like Prince Fielder and Sin-Shu Chu, sends out the just hands over the farm for guys like Sam Dyson and Jonathan Lucroy. And that's why they're in the situation that they're in now. They've got to go back to how they developed back at the start of the decade and got into World Series contention. And as much as he doesn't want to do it, it relies on you have to have actual baseball people be allowed to make the decisions in there. And, hopefully it's gonna. I keep my fingers crossed that it's gonna happen, because I've just been so damn tired of having to look negatively on the team that was the source of joy for me for more than 20 years, and when I had some type of idealism still left in me. And at the very, like I said, the very least, at least your guys got a World Series recently, championship. You took down the Astros in 2019. You still got that to hang on. And like I said, it's a difficult situation I get with what's going on there in Washington. You've basically got a situation where it's clear the Lerner family
selling the team as well.
Isn't interested in putting out the money for the club anymore, and is wanting to get out. At the same time, if they've still got the basics of the management in place that was more or less able to build the club that had such a great run in the 2010s, that culminated finally in getting over that hump and winning the World Series in 2019. That's the one fear I would have of you guys is you might get some fresh capital in with new ownership, but they're going to clean house and bring in all their own guys, and then you're really starting over from the beginning.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's the thing about ownership and such, is that they're going to either keep the people there or they're going to keep them out or something. And then, like I look upon not just the ownership and the situation in DC, but at this point, it got it was actually so ugly that they were going to say they're going to move him to Tennessee, the Orioles, but they actually had a huge statement saying that's not going to be the case. But who knows, man? I don't. I don't think uh, Major League Baseball needs another negative thing that happened to like the Montreal Expos, tied it back to the Washington Nationals and such, is that they don't want to have that type of negative type of you know city drama or whatever. Because again, when the Orioles were great, they drew in everybody in the park. Everyone in Maryland and everyone in DC, everyone supported them. Even when DC had a team or whatever, when the Nationals showed up, they still love the Orioles and such. They still love them. But if it came to that they did do that type of thing, because again this had happened before with Baltimore, the Baltimore court Colts with Jim Irsay legitimately leaving in Mayflower U-Haul trucks in the middle of the night before they actually signed local legislation to stop them. uh, I mean, this again can happen, and I hope it doesn't, because again, or I've been to that Orioles Park many a time. It's great, and I just hope that they get their stuff together because again, they need to keep things. I think they're on more of a right path than what the Nationals are, which they are completely are in that full drag out rebuild type of thing. And they need to build their farm system, which I get. They need to do that. Heck, they need to do that for the first time when they came here, that they need to rebuild. But when you lost Juan Soto, when you lose someone who was basically their next big star like that, your young big star, and that hurts. In fact, they lost their the only one again, Steven Strasburg was the only guy left in that World Series run who was a contributor. Everyone else is pretty much gone, and that is a shame. And that I don't know what I don't know what the Nationals are going to do to really bring back fan trust, because right now fan trust is on an all time low.